Black alert. Black alert.
Okay, now before I can actually paint this, I did find a few places where I think I need to use a little bit of putty. And this is the first part right here, right along that line. Now, this part I'm actually fine with, that's just a panel line. But right here we do have a bigger gap than I'd like. And on the inside as well, right in there. So I think we're just gonna need a little bit of putty to kind of get that looking a little better. Alright guys, we are now firmly in the painting phase for this ship. So let's look at what round 2 Polar Lights suggests we use for this kit. So we start off with a base coat of light gold, then we use silver and bronze for the accents. Then the clear parts, we're doing some in clear blue, some in clear red. Now I really think on this kit, it really benefits from pre-painting a lot of it before you put it together. Especially when we look at something like this clear blue strip going across the back. That's not really something you're going to want to mask off and paint later. So what I did is I airbrushed the back half of the top part, the back half of the bottom part with my gold color, did the clear part in clear blue, and then I sandwiched them all together. I didn't do any glue kind of here on the outside. I put a tiny drop of super glue on all the snap posts inside and put it together. But that really saved me from having to mask off that blue stripe. I stopped my airbrushing right about here so that I would have a clean gluing surface to use Tamiya cement right there. And then I just airbrushed the front half so that I could airbrush over like this section after it was glued together. But definitely pre-painting this worked pretty well. You could pre-paint the entire nacelle halves and then snap it together and have a good crisp line there for the blue clear part. Also on the back, I did not want to mask off those red parts, so I left those off until I painted it. Then just tiny drops of super glue to hold on to those red parts. The other thing I feel really benefits from pre-painting, I pre-painted this sphere. So I painted the top half, painted the bottom half. That way when I put it together, I didn't have to worry about masking off those clear windows. Same thing on the bottom there. Painted the actual sphere in kind of the bronze color, so I wouldn't have to worry about that window. Now what I'm going to do next is I have to continue this bronze color down the spine. So I'll mask off the spine so it's by itself, spray bronze on it, and then the silver accents really should be these stripes, but those are actually also reflected on a decal. So I'm not sure if I will do the silver. Maybe I'll just let the decal do that. And it looks like you do some bronze around the shuttle bay entrance here. So that's what we're doing next. And for my actual paint colors, so they suggest light gold. So the Tamiya acrylic that I found was closest was Titan Gold. And on my kind of test experiment ship, this is Titan Gold all by itself. You kind of compare it to my final color here. I think the Titan Gold would look okay, especially under the decals, but I wanted it to be a little bit darker of a gold, so I mixed it with copper. Actually, I made two mixes like this. Just kind of one heavier on the gold, one heavier on the copper, and kind of that's what I'm using. I hope you can see a difference there. This one is more gold, and this one is more copper. And the one that's more copper, that's what I'm using for the bronze color on that sphere. So there you go. Both of these colors are a mix of Titan Gold and copper. This one is just more gold. This one is more copper. I'm going to mask those off and we'll be back after we've painted the spine. All right, we might be a little overboard with the masking, but on a model like this that's kind of small, it's easy enough that when you're aiming the airbrush here to hit a lot of things back here. Or if you're trying to kind of be underneath and hit this, it's easy to kind of overspray on a smaller model. So better safe than sorry. Use a little bit extra masking tape and mask things off well. All right, now we have the spine unmasked. Kind of see the difference in the paint colors there. Yeah, it's a good angle to see the difference there. All right, we'll touch up some of the gold paint. Make sure we get a second coat on there. But very soon we're going to be on to decals for this ship. All right, so now we are getting ready to put on the decals. So we have all the supplies we need. We have gloss coat to get the model a good glossy finish. We've already done that step. We have, of course, our decals, our water, we have some good tweezers, and we have microsol to kind of melt the decals onto the ship. So we're going to take a moment, we're going to cut out the decals and see what they look like. All right, here are our first 3 decals. Get a good close look here. So I'm very interested in what these look like. I'm sure most of this white part is probably translucent, but you can see here there are windows, and hopefully those windows will be white. Now this decal is meant to fold around the ship. So we have the center section, then one wall, and a second wall. So that is this center triangle here, then the wall on this side, and the wall on this side. So it looks like we're going to lay it down and let it wrap around. Looks like the same thing on this piece. It's going to fit on the middle, then wrap around to the bottom. And lastly, this part here is just going to lay on that one surface. So we're going to let our decals get wet. We're going to let them soak. We're also going to make sure just that our surface is nice and wet for those decals. Okay, and those are sliding very nicely. So we're going to try and line it up first and lay it down. We have a very clean brush here. All right, and those seem like good sturdy decals. They need just a little bit of repositioning here, and they seem to be repositioning pretty well. Let's see if I can lift it up at all and get it scooted over. All right, that is a good strong decal. No ripping, no tearing. And hopefully you can see that is some good detail, nice windows. All right, this next one looks like I'm gonna need a little bit of a cutout for the wire. Cut like that. reposition that for a minute. All right, we are just kind of positioning and flattening those decals with a Q-tip. The windows look good. The detail is very subtle. That is going to look good. Working on the nacelle decals now, and these are a lot like the ones here. The decal is going to have 3 sides. It's going to start here and wrap around the part. Just fantastic detail on these. So you just want to kind of lay it down in the middle. Make sure you're kind of pulling it off in a straight fashion. Once again, still pretty repositionable. So you can make sure you're going nice and straight. And see if I can show you this here. Like on this decal, there is that white piping. So we can use that white piping to try and make sure everything is nice and lined up. And once you think you've got lined up well, you're just going to fold that decal over on both sides. To your next piece. Yeah, very strong decals, easy to reposition, make sure they're lined up well. And then just with the Q-tip, fold them over. All right, now we're going to start working on the saucer decals, and we do have some notes about that in the instructions. You are actually supposed to cut the decals so that they can wrap around this beveled edge. So you're just supposed to do some little slits to kind of help it fold over and bend. Looks like around the inside ring. Slits on this part and slits on this part. So we're going to do that, and we're just going to use I'm going to use some sharp scissors just to put some little slits in there. All right, we're going to start on the back end. Seems to fold down pretty well. I just worry a little bit that maybe those slits will kind of compromise the decals. We try and reposition it, but so far it's going pretty well. Now, if I seem like I'm in a bit of a rush doing these, I am a little bit. I'd like them all to be on and wet so that I can reposition them and make sure they line up well. I don't want to start on one side and have it dry and find out that that wasn't where I wanted it to be. So we're going to try and get all of it lined up all at once. So right there you can see this is what I'm talking about. We need to get these much closer together. So we can kind of talk all day about whether we like the idea of wallpaper decals or Aztec decals, but at least they're well done. I think it's great on a kit kind of this size. I think it's a good way to get the level of detail that people want. And really, I just like that if you're going to try and do something like these decals, at least do them like this, where they're strong, well detailed, repositionable. We're going to let that dry. We're going to get some microsol on it, and we'll take a look at it then. Here's one more interesting decal. This one goes down the spine of the ship, and then these triangular parts on the side fall over to the other side. So the top part goes across there, and this bottom part is going to fall down to fill in this part. So if you can tell, there's a decal that ends right here, and this space is still blank. That's what this decal is going to fill in. So this is another one where they tell you or recommend that you put in a few cuts. You put in a cut here, 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 and here to help it lay flat against those shapes. Alright, so we've got it lined up. We'll make sure it's very even on the top and the bottom. Once we feel it's fairly positioned, bend that on down. All right, in addition to all the Aztec panel decals, there are the decals you can kind of see over here on the side that provide kind of these brown accents down the nacelles, these stripes that go across the hull, and some of these little panels that are kind of on the ship. So talking about these decals, I have to talk about two mistakes. One was a mistake I made, one is a mistake that round two has on the instructions. So the mistake I made is I should have read the instructions better. On the instructions where it talks about the decals, it will say apply these decals first, apply these decals last. And to me, I said, oh, I know what I'm doing. I know to put the panels down and put the registries on later. So that's all I thought that was. I thought that was just a lay down the detailed panels, then put the registry names and pennants on afterwards. But what it actually is these brown decals here. Yours to put those on first, and then put the Aztec panels on top of them. So they're less just a solid brown color, but let those kind of transparent Aztec decals provide some detail for those. So when you start working on this kit, read those instructions, take those 5 decals, put those on first. And they spell it out. So that's all on me. I thought they were just talking about putting the registries on second, so I kind of glossed over that. But the mistake that I have found on the decal instructions is there are some things that are reversed. So they say that decal 47 goes over on this side, but it really doesn't. Decal 47 does not line up properly here. If you line up this edge so that it's parallel like it should be, you can see it does not have the right angle to be on that side. Decal 47 goes over here. So you can see if you line this edge up parallel, that matches up. The other stripe, Decal 51, you can see that they are suggesting 51 goes over on the other side. And once again, Decal 51 does not line up properly on that side. Decal 51 lines up properly over here. Okay, once you get all those panels on, it's time to work on some of the registry decals. And they are tiny on this ship. I'm going to see if I can get in close, and some of these we might not be able to focus on. Now back here on the back we have a tiny USS Discovery 1031. On the nacelles we do have a wonderful Starfleet Arrowhead. And on the back, we do have a tiny NCC 1031. And these guys are tiny. There's a penny. There's our decal. Now this one is so tiny, I could not tell which decal it was until I had it off the paper and I was putting it on. This is this tiny little decal right here. I picked the wrong one. I actually put on the NCC 1030, which is the USS Glenn's Registry. But when I was looking at that, I could not tell which one it was. I used my best guess. There's the registry for the lower saucer. There's another tiny one that matches the one on the other side. Now that those registry decals are on, we are coming up at the very end of our build. One last little part here that I still have to put on. This is the sensor array that goes in front of the deflector dish. I've left this off just so it wouldn't get banged or broken. But now that we're coming up on the very end, it's time to put it right in that hole. Okay. Now we have the final touch, our Discovery Registry. I'm going to put on this last decal, then we'll let that decal dry and wrap up this build with some pros and cons and our final thoughts about the model.